All right, trying something new. Thought this might be a fun way to talk about the games from 2019 that I played. Instead of doing the traditional top 10 games, I'm making a tier list, and I'm looking at every game I played this last year. And how did I find every game I played this last year? Well, I built a new feature for Board Game Atlas specifically for this video. In the plays area of Board Game Atlas, you can find a nice now new visual showing the last 365 days, what you've played and how many plays you've had. So I played about 41 games, and I'm going to be going over what I consider the top tier, the mid tier, the bottom tier of those games that I've played. And don't let the number of plays fool you. It might be some indicator of the tier list. Woo, 106. But it might not. So let's check it out, see what my tier list is for 2019 board games. All right, so the number one thing to do when making a tier list is kind of orient everything so that you can have a good way to go. So I'm gonna be putting what is obviously S tier at the top, and that of course would be poker, played by millions of people. It's been around forever, and I like Texas Hold'em. There's a reason why it's most popular, and I played for months. So that's S tier, really obvious. Not as clear for board gaming, so I'm gonna put a board game up there, and I think Gloomhaven is an obvious one for most board gamers. Ranked number one on Board Game Geek. Overall, fantastic game. You know, my wife and I played a whole bunch of it. We've probably spent 15 to 20 hours in it so far in the campaign, and are looking forward to more. So what would be a typical A tier game? I think, you know, a solid game like, let's see what we got, Dominion. Dominion, could consider it an S tier, but you know, this is a solid core game that I'd pull out and play whenever, but it's not something that I'm like racing to go play if I see it on a game night or something. All right, B tier. So a B tier, I would consider a really solid game that I'd be happy to play and might pull out with the right audience, but you know, maybe I'm not looking forward to playing it as much as another game. So I think I'd put Vast in that category. Vast was a lot of fun, really cool miniatures, solid gameplay, interesting, but like, you know, played it once, I feel satisfied by it. Maybe that's a better definition. Played it once, felt satisfied, don't really want to play it again. In the C tier, this is where games, you know, maybe it wasn't unpleasant to play, but I don't want to play it again. I would put, I think Dungeon Drop fits that category. Played it once, and I don't really want to play it again. Games I just didn't enjoy while playing it, I think one would be Galitude. It's supposed to be a game that's trying to aim for the Magic the Gathering crowd and build a fan base and get to know it, but it's not compelling enough in the first play for me to want to play it again, and I don't want to invest all the time to really understand it, and I don't think the mechanics are really there to support a huge fan base right now. That's a D tier for me. So now we've got our orientation of what I consider S, A, B, C, and D tiers. So let's go through and throw a few games out there. We'll just go top left to bottom right. So Infotown Bumpers. This is a little biased because I'm actually the designer of Infotown, but you know, I would put that in a B tier. Played it once, and you know, I'm fine not playing it again. But if someone were to play it and ask, and which happens sometimes because I designed it, you know, I'd be fine playing it. It's got some solid gameplay. Not the best though. Reef. I think Reef at this point, I at first considered it a game to play all the time, but it lost its interestingness pretty quickly. So I'd put it in the B tier. I love the components. The components themselves, those are S tier. Gameplay is combo builder game, not engine builder, but combo builder. It's okay. Now, Welcome to. Now, if you don't know, I spent over 25 hours playing this game because it comes with 100 sheets. It's a roll and write, and it was a challenge. Can I play through all 100 sheets in one sitting? And I did it. And you know, I actually played it 6 more times that week with friends and family. This game, incredible. One of the best games ever, I think. Now, Mr. Toast, I think, you know, I could consider this C tier, D tier. I think I'd put it in the D. And I have a good friend who this is one of their favorite games. But, you know, there's a lot of games like this. It's, I think from what I remember, kind of set collection and just, like, supposed to be cute and fun art. But the theme doesn't really match the gameplay, and the gameplay itself, I'd rather play a game like Monopoly Deal. So I don't really want to play this one. Root, is this A or is this S? I think this is an A tier game. And as much as I love playing Root, and I really enjoyed every play I had this year, it's not something I can get to the table often. It's not something I can play with my friend group. I have my co-founder Phil, it's probably his favorite game, #1 game of this year. But outside of with him and maybe one other person, I don't really get to play this that often. The art, the gameplay, I think it's all S tier, but the fact that I can't get it to the table and play it, that's what brings it down a little bit. Even though Gloomhaven's heavier, I have a very consistent play group of my wife. And this is my tier list, not what I think the best games are. I think if I was just strictly thinking of the best games, I would put Root up and S. But based on my own play. Railroad Inc., I would put that in the B tier. Wonderful game, very great roll and write, but in comparison to Welcome 2, I will always play Welcome 2. Maybe not always, but most of the time I'd rather play that than Railroad Inc. I think the only thing I would rather do is if I were to play a ton of solo of a game again, I think I would play Railroad Inc. It's a little more relaxing, a little more visual. I think I would enjoy that more. A Dice Throne, bit of a disappointment. This is the first Kickstarter I backed for a board game, and I like the concept and like the tagline of it's Magic the Gathering meets King of Tokyo. Sounded so compelling, and it's exactly what it is, which isn't as compelling as what it sounds like. It's just I'd rather have Magic the Gathering or I'd rather have King of Tokyo. And a better comparison in my mind is Last Stand rather than King of Tokyo, because it's manipulating dice, and that's exactly what you do in that game. But I'd rather play Last Stand. I'd rather play Magic the Gathering, so I think I'd put this in the C tier. We got the Transformers trading card game. Much better than I expected. Also made by Wizards of the Coast, who are the makers of Magic the Gathering. I would put this, played it once. I enjoyed it. Be okay if my friend who introduced it to me wanted to play it again. Solid game. Very cool. Railroad Inc. Red Edition, same as Blue. I've never actually played with the expansions for either one, so it's essentially the same game. Although I really like that there's a red and blue version. It's just so delightful. And the fact that it's not expensive makes it approachable to buy both. Just One. This is either an A or an S. And I think if you catch me, like the first 3 weeks after I played it, I would put it in the S tier. But now I've lost some steam. I don't really want to bring it to family gatherings as much as I used to. I've played it with the family a lot at this point, and I'm kind of looking for the next party game that I can get around and get behind. Now, Quacks of Quedlinburg, if this were a top 10 game of the year, I would put Quacks as #1. But in this case, I put it S tier, of course. Wonderful, wonderful game. So much fun for any level of gamer. The only limitation is that it's 4 players max, and so I didn't get to play it as much as I wanted. But with the expansion, it goes to 5 players, so hoping to get that soon. Maybe for Christmas. We'll find out. Now, Wingspan, is this S or A? I think for me and how I've gotten to play it, it's an A tier game. The gameplay and the instructions to teach it and the bringing it to my friend group has been solid. I think I might be playing it tonight even with the Wingspan European expansion. The expansion didn't really add too much to the game other than just new cards. The purple eggs actually make a big difference for how much fun it is, because I'm a man of components, so I'm gonna put Wingspan European here. But not game changing in terms of the game itself. Unlike, I said I would go top left to bottom right. I'm gonna put Viticulture just straight up here. This is an S tier. This was my #2 game of the year. And with Tuscany, it's crushing it. My goodness. That added, the board that Tuscany adds that replaces the original worker placement Viticulture board is incredible. Totally worth getting Tuscany if you like Viticulture. Viticulture on its own is an S tier game, but this just raises it up. Now, Wisdom of Solomon. This is another worker placement game. I would put this in the B category. I'd rather play Viticulture, of course, But I like the theme of Wisdom of Solomon. The game length was fine. All the mechanisms were great as well, so I put it there. Growl. I played Growl some more. I thought it was a game for a while, but I think I would put this in tier B. Just because as I played it more, there was a lot of nuance in the rules that it felt like it should be a 3-minute to explain game. Turns into a 5 to 10 minute to explain and a lot of question answering afterwards. So that was a little frustrating, and then the gameplay itself, not that exciting either. I do like, though, that it's not just strict social deduction, because just playing a game of pointing fingers, not that fun. I like that there's some known information here. I would put a game like Mafia in the D category. I just don't want to play that kind of game. Ooh, Tiny Towns. Tiny Towns. This game I put right next to Quacks. This would be, Tiny Towns is probably my number 3 best game of 2019. Well, maybe number 4 after Welcome to. Who knows? But that's why I'm doing the tier list. Now, every time I have friends come over that are looking for a game that's a little more exciting, more strategic than, just one, I consider Tiny Towns or Quacks. And the only reason I would pick Tiny Towns is because we have more than 4 players. Tiny Towns, though, fabulous game, lots of fun, simultaneous turns and really quick action, simple strategy, really easy to teach, lots of replayability, wonderful game. Now, Pax Premier 2nd Edition, I think, I really want to put this higher up, maybe even to the B, but I had a pretty poor first experience. Just tons of rules that were a little difficult to navigate through. A lot of it, the rules were thematically described rather than mechanically. So I had to really parse and understand what elements meant in terms of actual gameplay. And then in teaching it, there was a little bit of difficulty there. So that's partly my part in preparing for it. But in the game session we had, there weren't that many exciting decisions or things that happened. Cool and fun components, of course. Beautiful, even. And I think if I were to play it more, it would probably likely, based on the other reviews I've seen, go up. But from my experience, I played it. I don't really want to play it again. And the only reason I would is just to do a solid review video for. I think I'd put Estates in that same category. Solid game. I'm sure if I were to play it more, it would go higher up, but I just don't want to play it again. Parks. Oh, Parks. What a beautiful game. This is A tier at least, maybe S tier. I think just one. If you caught me two months ago, this would be easy S tier. For now, it's an A tier. Wickedly fun, very beautiful game. I love the components. I love having a worker placement that lasts less than an hour. So if I want a viticulture-esque game that doesn't take 3 hours, I'm definitely picking up Parks and playing that. Cake Duel. I think this is a game that has a really cool box, has a fun theme that doesn't really match the gameplay at all. It's kind of a throw all sorts of themes of fighting, of cakes, and sheep all together, which is interesting. The box was unique. Gameplay, though, kind of a rock, paper, scissors, blind betting sort of game. Not that interesting to me. Now, Saboteur, I think I like better than Growl at this point, but I would put it on the same level. It's fine. I would never pick it, but I would be happy to play it. Decrypto. This, if you haven't played, it's very similar to Codenames. There's 2 teams. There's some secret communication of words and things, but in a way that I think differentiates itself enough from Codenames that it's worth having a copy of if you haven't gotten it. I like it a lot. War of the Rings 2nd Edition. I had the pleasure of playing this. I don't own it. And it gave me a similar feeling to Gloomhaven, where there's a lot of thought and deep, engaging gameplay there. It takes a while to learn, but I think it's well worth it. I like the gameplay of having the cards that have the top and bottom so they can always do something. I love the huge map. The theme, of course, is great. All of the miniatures and the balance of everything just feels really solid. And Century Spice Road, I think this game is great, but it's in that B category for me. It's almost a staple at this point of board gaming shelves, because it's so simple and the mechanics so easy, a hand building game. It's a lot of fun. It's an engine building, hand building game. I got tired of it. I played it a bunch in 2018, so I think 2018 that was an A tier, 2019 it's B tier. I think same with Santorini. Played it a bunch in 2018 and just less interested now. Azul even. Might be B tier at this point. Won some awards. Great solid game of 2018. Oh, but it kind of hurts. I think from my desire, I'm always looking at tiny towns and quacks now, where Azul would have fit that feeling of like wanting to play a game that takes less than an hour, has a lot of strategy, and more strategy than a party game. Azul is just moving off my shelf, not getting to the table. I think Dominion, Intrigue, I probably should have brought this up. Intrigue, Intrigue might be S tier. I think I'd be excited to play if Intrigue's involved, or another expansion of not Intrigue. Feast for Odin. Man, what a box, what a game. It really feels like this worker placement game. I am a Viking, I'm pillaging, I'm farming, I'm setting sail, I'm doing all sorts of things, discovering new lands. It's a wonderful game. It's great for me and my wife. We played it several times and enjoyed it each time. Not as great as Viticulture. It's harder to bring to a group. Codename Pictures, I just don't like nearly as much as Codenames, at least. Or any other party game. I don't want to play it again. I'd rather play the original Codenames. I don't know why. I just felt like with pictures, I could only get two of like if I'm giving a hint, you give a word and a number, I could only give up to two most times, and it just didn't feel as competitive or as interesting. Ice Cool, you know, if this was 3 weeks ago, I would put it in B tier, but it's kind of moving up to the A tier. It's such a fun game when I have another couple over. My wife and I just break this out. It's a great 20 minutes of fun and flicking. One of the best dexterity games there are. And we got it at Target for 15 bucks. 25 is the MSRP. We got it for 15. Totally worth it. Wonderful game. That's an A tier dexterity game right there. And Cytosis, it's another game that's, worker placement. I'd rather play Viticulture, of course. But like Wisdom of Solomon, it's got an interesting theme. Brought me some flashbacks of high school science. And actually thinking about it again, I don't think I would want to play it again if someone were to ask. Just because I'd rather play Wisdom, I'd rather play Parks, I'd rather play Viticulture. This one was just, very convoluted and a little difficult to learn and to teach. But, fun in the moment. Pandemic Iberia. This was fine. I don't want to really play that much more Pandemic. I think Iberia is the better version, but I'm not really interested in playing it. If I were to play another co-op game, I'd rather play Kings of Israel. That might be B tier or even A tier. For some reason, it's almost functionally the same game, but I think it might be the theme, but it just feels like the gameplay itself feels smoother in Kings of Israel than in Pandemic. Now, Skull is a fun, solid, abstract game. It's definitely not poker. At this point, I'd play if other people want to, but the trouble with Skull is that whenever I try and get my friends to play, no one really wants to. No one's that interested. I don't know why. I think if they want to play a game, they want to be able to invest more time and get more play out of it. Otherwise, they'd rather play something like poker that they already understand. I put Adventure Time there. It's kind of a time filler if you're waiting for people in the group to join. Just like 16 cards or something. Really simple gameplay. Pandemic Legacy kind of fell flat. We played through 2 of the months and then broke at Gloomhaven and never looked back. So my wife and I enjoyed Pandemic Legacy, even had a moment in the first month where we thought this was the greatest game of all time, but just fell into the trap of, I don't really want to play Pandemic again. And so, I might even move it to C tier, actually. Just because as much as the story and those kind of world-changing elements are there, it's just not as interesting as I want it to be. DC DBG, the DC deck building game. We did co-op just wasn't that interesting. Took a long time, and maybe I just had a bad experience. And I'm not one for co-ops most of the time, unless it's story-driven like Pandemic or Gloomhaven. So I don't think I would want to play again. Joust for fun. I would, I played it. It was satisfying. Put it in the C tier. It's not something that I actively don't want to play. Joust for fun. Fun little game where you're each getting hero cards and you're jousting like in medieval times. And there's benefits and buffs to each one. You're trying to win with the most points. Now Pipeline, man, do I want this to be A tier. But I haven't gotten it to get to the table with my friend group. We play Tuesday nights and there's no way that we can play Pipeline in a reasonable amount of time. So I have to put it in the B tier, but gameplay wise, this is one of my favorite games of the year. It's so brutal and so hard because the margins are so thin. If you play well, you can just grow quickly. If you don't play well, you can lose money or you just barely skirt by. It's such a fun game. Ultimate Fighters, this is another game that I designed. It's not out yet, but I played it a bunch this year just to try and see, is it something I should launch on Kickstarter in 2019? I ultimately decided not to because of marketing reasons. But, this is a game that I don't bring to the table myself, but I play it. If anyone asks, I want to, and I enjoy playing. So I'll put it in the B tier. But of course, when I launch it on Kickstarter, I'm going to be talking about it like it's an S tier. So look forward to that. I have played it 500 times at this point, just due to balancing. So that might be one of the reasons why. Still a fun game though. Kind of reminds me of Welcome 2, where I'm up for it at any point. Tournament of Towers. This is a fine game. I don't think I want to play it again. Maybe if it's the co-op rules, I think that would be fun, building something together. This is a dexterity building game, kind of opposite of Jenga, where you're just building up from nothing. Very fun. Black Angel. I think compared to Pipeline, this is C tier. Similar game where really big, takes a long time. I think the instructions kind of kill it though. It's tons of iconography. You have to learn the language of Black Angel essentially to really get going in terms of how you play. And it's conceptually very easy. It's just kind of a worker placement game and you're flying around doing stuff, fighting guys. There's not that many actions to be aware of, but for some reason it's like a slog to get through the rule book. So overall, I would play it again, but I wouldn't really look forward to it. I wouldn't bring it up, so I'll put it in the C tier. So that's my tier list for my games that I played in 2019. I am just in love with these games. Texas Hold'em, I think, will always be S tier. Gloomhaven, Welcome to Tiny Towns, Quacks of Quedlinburg, Viticulture, especially with the Tuscany edition, and Dominion Intrigue. These are all rock solid games I always want to play. I bring it to family gatherings, I bring it to game nights, I play it multiple times. I'm always up for it. So that's my tier list. Do you agree or disagree with anything? I think I've got some of pretty amazing games lower than most people would put them, but that's my tier list. Let me know if you would change anything in the comments below.